everybody, it's Jeff. We're gonna start working on our cargo truck this time. I'm going to go through this series of videos for this build very slowly, very detailed, for anybody that's never built a MiniArt kit before, and show all the steps I take. This is not a tutorial, it's just basically the way I do it, and you can do it any way you want. I went through the instructions, and first thing off I decided I was going to build this on the back cover. U.S. Army Service Forces 9th Service Command 1945. I really like this color scheme in the barrels and everything. That's going to determine your paints. If you go to your paint callouts, there's one color here. They call it sand. Vallejo calls it ivory. Okay, I don't even need that color because I'm not going to be doing that one color scheme. Also, the red brown, they got it down as 71.818. There is no Vallejo color 71.818 that I've been able to find. I was on the Vallejo website and I punched it in and it came back as nothing. This kit's not very old, so I'm assuming that's probably a misprint. But I do have a red brown Vallejo color here that is German red brown 71271. So we'll be using that instead of the red brown that the instructions call for. Okay, and then I've got, I was going to use the red brown primer for a replacement for that, but then I realized I had the red brown paint. So let's go back to the beginning here. One thing that I didn't even notice that I couldn't find, or didn't even look for it in the instruction when I was going through the instructions the first time, was this piece of chain. I was looking through everything at all the sprues, didn't even think about the chain. If you go to your photo etch, pull out the photo etch, there's the chain right there. So we'll keep it in here, keep it safe, but the chain was included, so I don't have to source that myself. Another thing I wanted to mention, MiniArt has a lot of kits that use the same basic parts. So I know a lot of manufacturers have sprue maps that black out the parts that you don't use. MiniArt does not do that. So just as an example, I've got two right fenders here. We're only going to use one, obviously, but the other one's not blacked out. So like here, there's two exhaust pipes, different numbers, but not both of them are going to be used. This one was actually broken. I think it was this one. I've got the part, but when it comes right down to it, I'm not sure if I'll need it or not till I go through the instructions a little better. Just be careful that when you're making your kit, just because the part looks like the part in the instructions, always verify your numbers, because I've seen other MiniArt kits that'll have two parts that look almost identical, but they're not. And if you use the wrong part, then a hole will be in the wrong place or something won't line up. So you gotta be real careful that any part, you verify the number before you actually use it. I've gone through the instructions and I've drawn lines around all the various steps that will be done. That really helps with the organization. Thanks, Jason, for that idea. I really appreciate it. Anybody that's building the MiniArt kit, it only takes a little while to sit down with a ruler and a pen and just line everything out. It makes a big difference. I also made a few notes. I pulled up a picture of the actual engine for this, and some of the paint callouts that MiniArt had, I don't particularly agree with. You know, it's your kit, build it how you want, but I do a little research before I even start. And as an example, this part here, BF12, MiniArt had it listed as an aluminum paint, where in fact on the real engine it was black. There are several other examples here that I've gone through, and I've changed the key to what I want, not necessarily what the instructions say, because I'm trying to be a little more accurate. So anyway, I marked all this stuff off, and I made a few notes. I'll make more notes as I go. As an example, I need to make a note here. This FA12, one of these is missing. So I did find some spare door handles for another kit. They're not exactly the same, but I'll find a way to make them work. So that's an issue that's been dealt with. I don't really remember any specific other notes I made, but you can see where I marked everything off. Makes a big difference in keeping all the steps straight. Okay, for the paint callouts, they list colors, but that's not necessarily the color that the actual manufacturer uses. I didn't go through Mr. Color and AK and everything to see what they actually call their paints, but since I'm using Vallejo, I made a little cheat sheet, and these are the colors I picked. And these are the colors. See, this is ivory, which I will not use. But I've gone through and made sure I had them in my inventory. The ones that are marked with an S are from the place I ordered them from. That's just, it's Sprue Brothers is where I ordered the stuff. So I just put a little S showing that those are on order. But I'll put this up like underneath my camera stand or something so I can refer to it and I don't have to keep flipping through the instructions. So here's the paints that I have. The rest have been on order and should be here in just a couple of days. I also have some washes and things that the instructions did not call for, but I think will probably be useful. So some pigments and things too. But I've got those all in a container separated from my other stuff, so I don't have to go looking for them all the time. So I'll put this up to where I can see it and make it real easy for me to refer back to it. The instructions, just to show you real quick, every instruction has a large gray circle. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. But they also have letters, which is A, B, and C, and those are for sub-assemblies. So A we'll do first, then that A will be added to part 1. We'll do B, which will be on part 2, and we'll do C, which is on part 2. So you got to be real careful, you know, that you're doing your A, B's, C's, and so forth correctly. The other thing is that the beginning of these instructions, it's mainly building the frame and so forth. There are no paint callouts for any of this until you get up to the engine. Now the reason for that is that depending on which color scheme you pick, the frame will be a different color. This is the one I'm going with, and the frame you can see underneath is the olive drab. Okay, if I was to paint this one, I can see under here where the frame is the ivory. So you got to base your frame and your running gear and everything on, you know, what you're doing. Military vehicles, a lot of times they just put the same color on everything. It's not like a civilian vehicle where you'll have, you know, a black frame and a blue body or something like that. Usually with the military, when they start painting, they just pretty much paint everything. So that's a good tip for that. The paint call outs are all in a little box. Here's, like this one here is 05 they call it. So you refer back to your 05, which is a steel color. So that's why I've got this all put up where it makes it real easy for me to see what I'm doing. But the little boxes, the little gray boxes with two numbers in them, that's our paint call outs. Okay, I think we're pretty good on the instructions. I'll show you real quick how I've got the sprues organized. I've got a box here with all the small sprues. MiniArt's big on lots of little sprues. So everything's been marked with what the sprue is, so it's easy to find, and it's put between a piece of paper towel so that it doesn't get scratched up. There are some real bad scratches on a few of these parts just because MiniArt puts everything in one box. Or one bag, I should say. They don't separate things like a lot of companies do. But I went through and I separated everything. And I also found 5 or 6 broken parts. So while they were still on the sprue, and if I had all the pieces, I went ahead and glued them all back together. So hopefully they'll all be good to go when I start building. This is the forms for the photo etch. So I didn't mark those, but I'll just leave in the front here to keep it all handy. These are my extra parts I just showed you here. I've got one tub here with all my photo etch and my clear and my decals in it, so that's all ready to go. This one here is 8 BAs and 4 BEs for all the barrels and the figures. So all these parts are just for the barrels and the figures. Well, I'll probably, you know, not even do these till I get pretty much to the end of the project. So those will stay safe in that container. Then my big sprues I've got over here on my right, and I've got those situated to where they're separated. They're not touching each other. And I've marked them all, so they're easy to find. I've gone through every sprue, looked for every broken part I could find. If I couldn't find it, I made a note for a broken part. I fixed it, and then I went through looking for sink marks. Now this is the bed, and you can see this structure here on the back. It's got several raised ribs. Well, guess what? On the other side, there's sink marks. So I made some marks with a marker to remind me that when I get to that point, the fact is I probably ought to do it soon so that it's all fixed, because you can definitely feel sink marks, and I don't want the bed of my truck to be, you know, like that when it gets to the point where I'm going to put paint on it. So I've checked everything over. That's the only places I really saw sink, and I'll get those fixed before I even, you know, need this part. Rather than wait until, you know, I'm ready to glue it on and, oh no, here's a problem. So that's done. I think that's it. I've got a bunch of extra containers, all, you know, ready to go. These are actually for lunch meat, come from my local grocery store. When I love to eat like a turkey sandwich. In fact is, I usually eat turkey sandwiches for lunch almost every day. So I save the containers. They're free. They're airtight. I can put parts in them, pat it with some paper towel, put the lid on and mark it with a post-it note, and they're all ready to go when I get ready to put that part on. I've also got some of these small 2-ounce containers with lids, and I use those for small parts when I'm working on getting those ready to go. I don't like to leave anything just on the bench unless it's something I'm working on at the moment. I try and keep it all organized. So I'm going to stop right here and I'll look for the first parts and we'll start putting this thing together. Be right back. Okay, I've got some parts cleaned up. We can start getting this together. I'm working on subassembly A. It's only 3 parts, and here they are. This part here, A74, had 2 ejector pin marks on the end. Actually, I think they call them Z pins, where they actually stick up quite a bit. So I cut those back and sanded them. Got those all ready to go. If you'll notice, this hole here is not in the center. Okay, so you got to make sure you put that in the correct direction. And what I did is I looked to make sure that the parts line up. When you're putting these together, basically they will go to, see, that's backwards, and that's correct, to where the to where this part here can be seen through the hole. See there? This is really a common thing with MiniArt. The parts have a top and a bottom, but they don't really tell you. So you got to make sure when you put that together. There's also locating pins or locating lines inside here. So when you put it together, they lock in there, but you got to make sure that you don't have it flipped 180 degrees. So we'll glue that together with the hole lined up, and then also there's a little, this part A63 is supposed to represent a spring. It'll go inside here, and there is a little locating pin you can see there for that, so that'll keep that all together. So I'll get those put together real quick. On part B, or on subsection B I should say, we're putting what they call the bumperettes together. These parts here will have to be annealed. I did cut them off the sprue, but yeah, I use these a lot. These Xuron cutters, they worked amazingly for, they go through photo etch like scissors through paper. But when you're trimming big stuff off, they work really good. Right now, I just checked, and I've got a little butane torch that I use for annealing things, and the butane apparently had a leak or something. Anyway, it's gone. I've ordered more, and I'll have it in a couple of days, and we'll get these annealed, and then we'll get them bent around this. It's really important that it's annealed, because there's no way you're going to be able to bend that into a nice sharp corner and get it to stay. It would tend to spring back. The other thing you got to watch it for is, if you'll notice, there's two holes, and then a hole and a hole. So these have to go a certain way too. You got to look at the instructions real careful to make sure that the parts oriented the correct direction, because it's not always easy to tell. So this will have to be on hold until my butane comes in and I can get those parts annealed. Here's C. Here's the top and bottom. Now if you'll notice, I have these cleaned up. I generally don't clean up things that are going to be glued together real good until they're glued together. That way I get a better finish. But if you'll notice, you can put it together and you can put it together. Okay, it fits both ways, but only one way is correct. there's a tab here, and there's also this tab over here, and those go together. When you do that, let me get the thing lined up. There we go. When you get things lined up, then these bands line up all the way across, and everything fits nice and tight. So you got to make sure that that's oriented the right way. The instructions say nothing. So you could actually, and there's no pins inside or locating anything to make sure you put it in the correct direction. I've also got the little photo etch braces all cut out, and those will be ready to super glue on. So I'm going to do the tank and let the thing dry, and I'm going to do the seams and make sure I don't need to do any filler, and then I'll put the photo etch on, and that part will be good to go. In part 1, we'll be doing the frame. So subassembly A will go on. Now the frame right now is, if you look at it, is right side up. So you got to make sure that you have it oriented the correct way. These are the stops for the springs, so you want to make sure that you have them the right way. So we have these will go like so, and you got 3 little squares on this side. There's 1, 2, 3. You got to make sure you don't sand those up, because that's how the body and the bed locate. Okay, so we got to make sure that we put the thing with the bump stops down, the pins up. Okay, like this. And make sure that they're oriented the correct direction when we put them together. The other parts for this are here. More Z pins inside that I had to clean up. That will be 59. Now if you notice, it's got a little tab here, so that's going to have to go this direction. This is 54, which it has a hole and pretty well centered, but it also had Z pins, so those had to be cleaned up. So we've got to make sure that we put that in the correct direction, which would be this way. Make sure we follow the instructions. And then this is A34, which will go to the front, and it goes in this direction with this little hole to the back. So I'll get those put together. I'll get A done, I'll get that put together, and then I'll put C together, and I'll get the seams worked out, and then we'll come back and we'll start another. I'll go ahead and end this video now. And once I get the seams put together, get the frame put together, I'll start another video and show you my progress. I'm going to try and do a video for this every few days instead of once a week like I had been. So I'll do 2 or 3 steps, put out a video, 2 or 3 steps, put out a video, just to try and keep it a little shorter. This video is a little longer because I did kind of a introduction on everything. But I really appreciate everybody watching, and this kit will probably come together really, really nice. All MiniArt kits do. By the way, we all know what's going on in the Ukraine right now. The people that made this kit are actually at war right now. And in order to kind of support, businesses in the Ukraine, which I know are closed right now, I'm buying as many Ukrainian-made kits as I can. I ordered 3 today, and I'll order more as I can as long as they're available and they're at a halfway reasonable price. I'm not going to pay scalper prices for kits, but I'll try and buy as many Ukrainian made kits as I can. And I'm going to, of course, have the Ukrainian flag in the corner of the videos just to show my support. So I'll post this video here shortly as soon as I can get it edited, and I'll have another one up hopefully in just a couple days. Thanks a lot, guys. We'll see you next time.